Hi Year 7, welcome to this week's science tasks. Before I start talking about this week's tasks, I just want to say something about last week's tasks. I noticed in my video that I said a very silly thing and I just want to clarify it. I said that gravity was strong, but hopefully some of you who've been in my lessons know that that's not the case. Actually, gravity is a really weak force. And it feels like it's a very strong force to us, but actually little things can overcome gravity very, very easily. So for example, I've got this big nail and a little magnet, and the magnet can overcome gravity and pick up the nail. Now that means that that force of magnetism is stronger than the force of gravity, because gravity is pulling down, but the magnet is pulling up and manages to pull up the nail. So that's just what I wanted to clarify. Gravity is quite a very weak force actually. Okay, so putting that to one side, moving on to this week. This week's focus is a chemistry focus. And it's a chemistry focus. The clues are on the table. This shares a bit of my life, the periodic table. So we're going to focus on Mendeleev. Dmitry Mendeleev is our scientist this week. And as you can see, I have a collection of objects. I have my hot chocolate with whipped cream in my periodic table mug. I keep my glasses in my glasses case. All of you will have seen this, and it's so well used, you can't even see the elements anymore. So this week, it's all about chemical reactions and this amazing periodic table. So, task 1 this week, as always, is investigations. There are 2 possibilities this week looking at different chemical reactions. The first one you can look at involves lemon juice or other substances such as honey, etc., that you may have in your kitchen cupboard. So it's just what you've got available, and it's to make invisible ink. Now, invisible ink goes back, as it says in the paperwork that I've given you, the resources, goes back to ancient Greeks and Romans who've been using in ways to communicate secretly with each other. We're going to dilute anything you use, any of the resources you decide to use for this investigation, you dilute them, which means you add them to water. Because you'll see, if you just put straight lemon juice and you write something with lemon juice, you'll see it. It won't be very secret. Make sure you dilute it, use a cotton bud, maybe the end of a toothpick or the end of a spoon, the end you hold of the spoon, end of a straw, something where you've got a point that you can dip into the lemon juice, the diluted lemon juice, write your message, wait till it dries, you shouldn't see anything. That means you can pass it to someone. What they've got to do so that you can see the message is they've got to heat it up, because that induces a chemical reaction. And basically the lemon juice or whatever the substance you've used, it oxidizes. It goes through a chemical reaction when it's heated and it turns brown. So you will see the writing. So it suggests putting it close to a bulb or a light. You could also use a hairdryer, or you could put it close to possibly the kettle when it's on, just the side of the kettle, not the top of the kettle. That would be dangerous. So have a go. I want to hear about your secret messages, see how you get on. Your second investigation this week, it has got to do, oh, I'm wrecking the place here. It's got to do with, now it's bicarbonate of soda, also known as baking soda, not baking powder. So not baking powder, bye-bye baking powder, bicarbonate of soda. So you're going to use this along with vinegar. You can pretty much use any vinegar because it's the acetic acid in vinegar that causes this reaction. Now you've all made volcanoes before. I've also suggested that you can possibly put it into a bottle. So if you put it into a bottle, put a balloon over the bottle, and as the gas is produced, it will collect and inflate the balloon. So you can investigate that. What I want you to think about though, Year 7, is I want you to think about this as a chemical reaction, as you've been doing in school. We've been looking at individual atoms in chemical equations and recognizing these as elements from the periodic table. So this reaction is sodium bicarbonate added to acetic acid, which is in the vinegar. The arrow, remember, means chemical reaction happens. We get sodium acetate, and we can tell because there's the chemical symbol for sodium. And water, H2O over here, so 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And then there's your gas, carbon dioxide, and that's the gas that makes this experiment fun. CO2, 2 atoms of oxygen, 1 of carbon. So you can start to try and see if you can remember the different chemical symbols on the periodic table for the different elements. I want you to try this. To go that little bit further, these are your 2 reactants. Remember, these are reactants, these are products. Can you play around with and investigate if you change the amount of either of the reactants? You can't change both at the same time, so try an investigation, try 2 times the amount of sodium bicarbonate, see what that does. Next time, try a little bit more or a little bit less. Good luck, have fun, don't make a mess, and if you do, tidy it up. Have fun! Okay.
Bye, bye, bye.
So task 2, my beautiful assistants are getting very, very good at this. Task 2 involves learning a little bit about Dmitry Mendeleev. That's how you say his surname, Aev, it's just 2 E's. Russian chemist and inventor, and really considered to be one of the key people involved in creating our modern day periodic table. But he wasn't the only one. So make sure you watch the video in task 4 and also look back in your class notes and remember that although he was huge in the making of this, he's not the only one. What he did though that was different was I'm using playing cards. He didn't use playing cards, but he had all the elements written down on little cards, and basically he sat and he put them all out on tables in front of himself, and he tried to see how he could arrange these. And they say he sat for 3 days and 3 nights without taking a break, without doing anything, to battle through this problem. And he came up with this idea that you could order these different elements based on how they behaved, how they reacted with other elements, and how heavy they were, their atomic mass. And he noticed that you could set them all out. And he noticed that everything in a group, a column, they behaved the same way. They had similar chemical characteristics. And he also noticed that as you went across the periods, as we call them, rows, their atomic mass increased. They became a heavier element. But the main thing that Dmitry Mendeleev is known for is the spaces he left. He left spaces in the periodic table. And when someone said to him, why have you left a space in the periodic table? What's there? He said, because I believe that there's a pattern to these elements. And when we set them out like this, there's one there that hasn't been discovered yet. And he left spaces in the periodic table for the elements that he knew would be discovered. And he was right. We've discovered many, many elements since Dmitry Mendeleev died, and in fact some of them very recently in the last couple of years, and they've been named. So please read the information about Mendeleev, try and answer the questions, and good luck.